Welcome to the PSR's author interview series, where we take time to speak with the authors, researchers, and academics that have published work with us.
My name is Marc Kaye, and I'm the Senior Research Associate at PSR. Today, I'll be speaking with Marc, Guinjoan, and Toni Rodon regarding their paper, The Limits of Alarm, How Climate Scenarios Fail to Increase Willingness to Act and Pay for Climate Change Policies. Dr. Guinjoan is an associate professor at the Department of Political Science and Public Law at the University Autónoma de Barcelona, and Dr. Rodon is associate professor at the University Pompeu Fabra and research fellow at the London School of Economics. He is also the delegate knowledge transfer in social science and humanities. Good afternoon, both, and thank you for being with me here today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I'll start with our opening question. Could you please just tell us a little bit more about the key arguments contained within your paper and the central contribution that your paper makes to the field of study, please?
Okay, yeah. So if you want, we can start. I can start. So basically, this paper, it might be the case that this answer covers more than just one question, right? So please then split it into different answers. But the departing point of this paper is basically trying to assess to what extent telling individuals that climate change will get worse, telling individuals that extreme events will increase, telling individuals that extreme weather temperatures will increase. So to what extent does this affect their propensity to accept public policies and to their willingness to pay for these public policies? Okay, so we do have some insights from existing literature that in some occasions, telling people that the temperature will rise, they will be somehow more willing to do it, but there's at best mixed evidence. So this was the main purpose for engaging within this topic. So Toni, if you want to talk a bit about the results.
Yeah, sure. So Marc was explaining it right now. So essentially, the departing point is that we are surrounded by a lot of information regarding climate change. So climate change is in the news. We talked about it with our friends, colleagues, work colleagues, and so on. And in parallel to that, there is the whole idea about what to do about trying to fix the issue about climate change and a whole discussion about policies. And essentially what we're trying to do is somehow connect the two different spheres. So one of the challenges of information on climate change is that we see a lot of projections, we see a lot of forecasts. So we are told many times in the news everywhere, or even by our colleagues or friends, that things are going to get worse, that carbon dioxide is going to increase, there will be more natural events affecting us, and that they will be more catastrophic and so on. And essentially what we wanted to do, as Marc was explaining, is test whether this forecast have any effect on people's willingness to support climate change. In a way, there are two... Yeah. Marc.
Yeah, one question that perhaps I may add, it's important to explain that all these forecasts, they vary in the amount of consequences attributable to climate change, right? So we can see many different forecasts telling us that it will get worse, that it will get even more worse, but that it will be really catastrophic. No, so in a B, we wanted at a certain point to assess how this granularity, how these different potential outcomes that we have out there, real potential outcomes that we have out there, how do individuals react? So if we explain individuals that it will be super catastrophic, will they react in a different way? And that if we let them know that it will be just an increase of 1.5 degrees, which is something that we are currently in that situation?
Exactly. So basically taking these different levels or varying levels of granularity, that's what we wanted to test. And as I was saying, it is not entirely clear because someone could say that, it's kind of obvious to think that if you show people that things are going to be catastrophic, they will be more likely to support climate change policies all of a sudden. And it's not that clear, right? Well, for different reasons. First, because we are already exposed to this information in the real world. So we watch the news, we talk to our friends and colleagues, and basically this idea that things are going to get worse basically pops up in many different conversations. And then the second assumption, which is often not entirely accurate, is that we already have some priors and some attitudes towards climate change policies. Some of us, and if I may add, or some of us in the society do really believe that climate change is a problem and things are going on and they need to be fixed. But some other people, they are climate skeptics, so they already have priors, and maybe just providing information to these individuals, it simply doesn't work. No? So based on that, we design a survey experiment, a couple survey experiments, varying this level of granularity and things that could go on in the future, the different forecasts. So priming individuals to think about different things that can happen in the future. And essentially, the main takeaway is that forecasts do not work. Right? Regardless of the type of event that I'm showing you as an individual, with some exceptions, but it doesn't matter whether I'm telling you that the number of tornadoes will increase, the number of floods, and so on and so forth. People in general, being exposed to this information doesn't make them more likely to support or reject climate change policies. And also telling you that the temperature will increase, and therefore the natural events associated with it. It doesn't matter whether I tell you the average projection that is at the upper end or at the lower end. People do not react to this climate change or to the support of climate change policies. So that's essentially the main takeaway of the paper, which again might seem obvious, but it is not obvious, right? Because in other cases we see in other fields that projections and forecast works, but also in climate change, there are different expectations as to where forecasts have a positive or a negative effect. But in this case, what we see is a neutral effect, so a no effect.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I mean, you slightly answered this question already, but did you find this main finding of the inefficacy of forecasting surprising, or was it expected, kind of based on your knowledge in the existing literature?
Yeah, so in a way we could expect that. When we, of course, designed the experiment, our main idea was that this would have somehow of an effect, right? So that priming individuals with a mild increase in temperatures and catastrophic events would trigger a concern and a willingness to pay smaller than when we prime individuals with super catastrophic events, right? This was our initial expectation, but then perhaps when we went back to the theory, right, when we had already the results of the paper, and we went back to the literature, we actually identified that in certain occasions this might be the case, and there are other examples out there in which priming individuals or telling individuals how bad is a situation does not change the attitudes. So let me pose you an example that is very illustrative of what's going on, or what could be going on. And so NGOs basically during the 2000s and before, they were often, and probably people may remember this, no, they were often portraying images of young boys, young girls in Africa with big bellies, right? Famine, right? But at a certain point, these NGOs realized that this was not working. That by showing this catastrophic, this, let's say, disgusting, unfortunate, images, people were not more willing to provide, to give money for these NGOs, right? So what actually was working was telling them what this money would serve for. And this is actually something that we do not find in this paper, but in other papers that we are writing within this project in which this paper is embedded. And we are actually finding individuals are willing or might be willing to compromise, but they need to have information. And this is our evidence, but this is also evidence that other authors have found. So at the end of the day, we believe that it's super interesting. And of course, it's a null result, but we are happy that the journal wants to publish such a null result, because at the end of the day, it's something that it's worth knowing, no? Also for public entrepreneurs, for politicians, to know that, well, I mean, we need to go through other paths. We do not need to make emphasis on how bad is the situation. As Toni was saying before, individuals that are already primed, they already know this. Those that are climate skeptics, they are not going to believe this, irrespective of what you tell them, irrespective of the images, of the whatever you are doing to them. They're just skeptics. They don't believe. We have plenty of evidence out there. If currently in 2025 they do not believe in climate change, nothing is likely to change their minds.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. I think in terms of policy formation, but also campaigning on this issue, the findings that you've produced could be very impactful and suggest a change in tact might be necessary. So thank you very much for that. If I might ask, did you face any particular challenges in undertaking this research with your methodology or with your particular case study? Anything that you would like to share? And did you take any learning from addressing these challenges?
Definitely. Many learnings, I would say, in the context of this paper and of the project as well. So I guess one of the interesting things of working on climate change topics is that even though there is a lot of research, there are still a lot of question marks that we do not know, and therefore by producing any paper, and particularly this paper for the reasons I'm going to elaborate a little bit later, there are many things that one can learn during the process. So one of the challenges that Marc and I faced, especially in the beginning, was to come up with the particular research design that was answering the research question that we wanted to answer, right? Because obviously in here we have different forecasts, and in the end of the day we decided for one type of forecast, which is the increase in temperature, no? And then we varied the degrees that people were exposed to. But obviously there are many different types of forecasts. You can talk about temperature, you can talk about many other different things. And actually, during the revision of the paper, one of the reviewers suggested it to sort of look at the same thing from another angle. And Marc and I were very grateful for that comment, because he or she made us think about another angle. And we ran the second experiment, which is now in the paper that is going to be published, which instead of projecting or forecasting the temperature, it does it with the type of events that you are likely to be exposed in the future. However, I mean, the question mark is still there, no? And it's an intellectual question, which is that what we've learned in this paper is that like temperatures and the type of events do not work, but obviously there might be other type of forecasts that can work in a counterfactual or different scenario that maybe in the future we can undertake in the project. And then I guess the subsequent challenge or big question mark, something that we've learned with Marc on this project, but also on other projects, is like, okay, forecasts do not work, but what does work? What is it? How can we do it to convince people that climate change are needed? Climate change policies are needed to fix the situation, or at least mitigate the problem. And this is essentially what we are doing now. So this paper has helped us tremendously to sort of think about new ideas. And in our new sort of project or papers, what we're trying to do is have a deeper knowledge, and especially on the role of cost, benefits, and the redistribution of cost and benefits, which seem to be the key point for why some individuals are opposed or in favor of some climate change policies and not others.
Lovely, thank you. Marc, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, there was also after we got the review, the comments from the reviewers. One reviewer was telling us that our treatment conditions did not include a control. Let me explain it a bit for the broader audience. Basically, we're treating individuals. We were letting them know that, or telling them, priming them with an idea that temperatures will increase by 1.5 degrees, by 2 degrees, by 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, and that was all. And we didn't see any effect. No, we didn't see any changes in this regard on the willingness to pay or on the acceptability of certain public policies. But then one reviewer tells us, okay, but in this case you don't have a baseline control. No, you don't have the the baseline level of support for such policies once individuals are not being told that temperatures will increase. And what's more surprising, we haven't put many emphasis on this in the paper because we believe that this points to another paper. It's another debate likely, and we didn't want to make it too much emphasis. We have included in the paper, but it's but perhaps for the audience, it's interesting to let them know that this is actually what happens. Individuals in the control condition that were not told that climate change was about to increase, they showed a fewer support for such policies and fewer willingness to engage to pay for these policies, as compared to the whole other individuals that were subject to a priming condition. What can we learn in here? Is granularity? Is the difference in the temperature what makes individuals' willingness to contribute, to accept policies? No, it's just that in this case, we were making more salient an argument. So individuals, when you are making more salient an argument, they will increase their willingness to contribute, to pay, right? But this is just because we are making them think about this. But once we are making them think about this, there's no variation, right? So the final idea, the final conclusion in here is, okay, when we talk individuals about climate change, individuals might be more willing to compromise, right? So it's important to talk about climate change, but then it's not necessary to talk about future super catastrophic scenarios or scenarios that these are all conjectures that individuals are hard to prime, individuals are hard to convince because they have many priors, right? But this is still something that we learn and we find it super, super interesting, no? The difference between the control group and all the other treatment groups. And then perhaps there's an additional argument that we haven't bring about in here, but perhaps is in the process of making this paper, we were expecting the evidence to vary at least a bit by ideology, right? We were thinking that perhaps left-wing individuals would be a bit more elastic to all these treatment conditions, to the granularity of treatment conditions, right? Because they are more willingness to accept climate change, the existence, right? But the truth is that there were just no differences, that all the different slopes for all the different ideological groups, right-wing, center, left-wing individuals, they were basically the same.
And that's a particularly, for me at least, a surprising finding. As you suggest, you would expect people from a certain ideological position to be more open to these ideas and arguments. Is there anything you'd like to add further?
Well, maybe I can contribute to what you were just saying on the differences in ideology, because I think that has to do, and it's interesting, and has to do mainly about the role of information, right? So sometimes we believe that left-wing individuals are more likely to react to certain messages, or right-wing individuals are more likely to react to other type of messages. But as Marc was saying before, these are people that are already convinced pretty much about their position. They already have an information. If you are a voter of a certain party, climate skeptic or not, you already buy part of the arguments of the party or that ideological group. But in some other occasions, what happens is that those in the middle, moderates, centrists, those that do not have a lot of political information, are those that sort of change on one direction or the other. No? So if you have low political information and I'm telling you that climate change is going to be catastrophic and then temperature will increase and all these natural events will come forward and so on, maybe if you don't know anything, you are more likely to react. However, this is not what we find, no? Unlike other type of experiments on other fields. And we believe this sort of like speaks to this argument that we were saying before, right? That, you know, information, this type of information is not enough. It's important to talk about it, but then the granularity or variation about the type of forecast, obviously it's important, right? Because it guides the policies and what we need to do, but not maybe from a public opinion point of view, because you're not going to change individuals' position on climate change policies.
Okay, fantastic. Dr. Rodon and Dr. Guinjoan, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. It's, yeah, personally, I found it a fascinating paper with an important contribution to a key contemporary issue. I very much look forward to your future research. You've identified a significant challenge. You now seem to be turning your attentions on to how that challenge might be addressed. So we hope that you consider us at PSR for any further publications in this regard. And yeah, once again, thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
This has been the PSR's author interview series, where we take time to speak with the academics, researchers, and writers who have published work with us. To learn more about PSR, check out our website or find us on